Hello viewers, welcome you all to the channel Eliotian Arena. Today in this video we are going to discuss some MCQ based questions on Victorian age literature. I think the video will be helpful for your preparation for UGC NET, SET, VGT or TGT entrance examinations. So without delay, let us start the video. Question number 1. Which event marks the beginning of the Victorian age? Options are the French Revolution, the coronation of Queen Victoria, the Reform Act of 1832, the publication of lyrical ballads. And the answer is option B, the coronation of Queen Victoria. Question number 2. Who is the author of The Subjection of Women? George Eliot, J.S. Mill, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Thomas Hardy. And the answer is option B, J.S. Mill. Question number 3. Who wrote Culture and Anarchy? Matthew Arnold, Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin, Walter Pater. The answer is Matthew Arnold. Question number 4. Who wrote The Importance of Being Earnest? Options are Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, T.S. Eliot, John Galsworthy. And the answer is option B, Oscar Wilde. Question number 5. The phrase sweetness and light was popularized by Carlyle, Arnold, Ruskin, Pater. And the answer is option B, Arnold. Question 6. Which of the following novels was not written by Charles Dickens? Options: Hard Times, Oliver Twist, Vanity Fair, Bleak House. And the answer is option C, Vanity Fair. Question 7. Who wrote In Memoriam? Options: Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Matthew Arnold, Robert Browning, Alfred Lord Tennyson. The answer is Alfred Lord Tennyson. Question 8. Art for art's sake is a phrase modernism, romanticism, Victorian realism, the aesthetic moment. And the answer is the aesthetic moment, option D. Which of the following poems criticizes industrial society? Options: Locksley Hall, Dover Beach, The Cry of the Children, The Scholar Gypsy. And the answer is option C, The Cry of the Children. Question number 10. Who among the following is a pre-Raphaelite poet? Rossetti, Hopkins, Browning, Tennyson. The correct option is Rossetti, Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Question 11. The Victorian age began in which year? 1837, 1832, 1830, 1848. And the correct option is 1837. The period started from 1837 till 1901. Question 12. Which act gave voting rights to the middle classes and marked the rise of democracy in Britain? Options: Reform Act of 1832, Education Act of 1870, Factory Act of 1847, Poor Law Act of 1834. And the answer is option A, Reform Act of 1832, in which voting rights are given to the middle classes. Question 13. Which ideology emphasized social reform, duty, and respectability during the Victorian period. Romanticism, Puritanism, utilitarianism, aestheticism. So the answer is utilitarianism. Question 14. Who was a key figure in utilitarian philosophy? Options: Thomas Carlyle, Jeremy Bentham, Robert Browning, John Ruskin. And the answer is option B, Jeremy Bentham. Question 15. The Oxford movement was primarily concerned with options: political reform, educational reform, religious revival within the Anglican Church, industrial reform. So the option C is right, religious revival within the Anglican Church. Question 16. The slogan survival of the fittest was coined by Herbert Spencer, Charles Darwin, Thomas Huxley, Karl Marx. And the right answer is Herbert Spencer, who coined survival of the fittest. Question 17. Matthew Arnold's famous poem, Dover Which, primarily reflects the theme of romantic love and nature's beauty, the loss of religious faith in the modern world, industrial progress and optimism, the glory of the British Empire. So the right answer is option B, the loss of religious faith in the modern world. Question 18. Which novel by Charles Dickens is a critique of industrial society and the utilitarian philosophy set primarily in the fictional Cooktown? Options are Oliver Twist, Great Expectations, Hard Times, David Copperfield. And the right option is Hard Times. Question 19. Which poetic form is Robert Browning most famous for mastering? Sonnet sequence, heroic couplet, dramatic monologue, ode. So it is option C, dramatic monologue. Question number 20. The Victorian age is generally dated to correspond with the reign of Queen Victoria from which years? Already we have discussed option B is right, 1837 to 1901. Question 21. The phrase the novel with a purpose or propaganda novel is most commonly associated with which Victorian subgenre? Options are the Gothic novel, sensational novel, Bildungsroman, condition of England novel. So the right answer, condition of England novel. Question 22. Which of Robert Browning's poems is about an imaginary faultless painter who lacks the necessary passion and genius? Options are Porphyria's Lover, The Bishop Orders His Tomb, Andrea del Sato, Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came. The right option is Andrea del Sato. Question 23. Who is the author of the novel Middlemarch, a study of provincial life, known for its psychological realism and exploration of thwarted female aspiration? Options are Bronte, Gaskell, Eliot, Hardy. And the right option is none other than George Eliot. The famous line, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield, is the concluding line of which poem by Tennyson? Options: In Memoriam, The Lady of Shalott, Ulysses, Mud. And the right option is option C, Ulysses. Question 25. The literary movement that reacted against the perceived moral earnestness and social utility of Victorian art advocating art for art's sake is known as. Options are pre-Raphaelitism, aestheticism, realism, naturalism. So it is option B, aestheticism. Question 26. Which novel by Thomas Hardy presents the tragic fate of an innocent woman driven to crime by social hypocrisy and circumstantial determinism? Options are The Mayor of the Castle Bridge, Far from the Madding Crowd, Jude the Obscure, Tales of the Dual Vales. The right answer is option D, Tales of the Dual Vales. Question 27. Which Victorian poet's work, including The Blessed Damsel, is central to the pre-Raphaelite movement and is characterized by medievalism and sensuous detail? Options: Gerald Manley Hopkins, Christian Rossetti, A.C. Swinburne, and Daisy Rossetti. The right answer is Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Option D is correct. Question 28. The famous opening line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," belongs to which Dickens novel? Options: Oliver Twist, A Tale of Two Cities, Bleak House, Great Expectations. The right option: A Tale of Two Cities. Question 29. The collection of poems that Robert Browning published shortly after the death of his wife Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which contains some of his most profound dramatic monologues, that is, Men and Women, Dramatic Lyrics, Dramatis Personae, Oscillando. The right option C, Dramatis Personae. Question 30. Which essayist and social critic is the author of Culture and Anarchy, arguing that culture is necessary to combat the chaos and Philistinism of modern industrial society? Options: Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin, Walter Pater, and Matthew Arnold. So the correct option is D. Matthew Arnold is the author of Culture and Anarchy. Question 31. Elizabeth Barrett Browning's verse novel, a sprawling epic dealing with the life of a female artist and social issues, is titled Casa Grudi Windows, The Cry of the Children, The Seraphim, Aurora Leigh. So the right answer, Aurora Leigh, is a verse novel by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The influential art critic and social commentator who wrote Unto This Last, profoundly impacting socialist thought and thinkers like Gandhi, was Walter Pater, John Ruskin, Thomas Huxley, G.M. Trevelyan. So the right option is option B, John Ruskin. Question number 33. The poem Pied Beauty, known for its celebration of a god's creation in dappled things and its use of strong rhythm, was written by which Jesuit poet whose work was published posthumously? Options are Arthur Hughes Clough, Tennyson, Hopkins, Swinburne. So the right option is Hopkins. Question 34. In which of the following novels does the protagonist Pip receive a mysterious inheritance from an unknown benefactor? Options are David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, Bleak House, Great Expectations. So the right option is D, Great Expectations. 35. Oscar Wilde's play The Importance of Being Earnest is considered a quintessential example of which dramatic style? Tragedy, problem play, comedy of manners, melodrama. So the right option C, comedy of manners or farce. 36. Who is the author of Satyr Reciters? A highly influential and eccentric non-fictional work that tackles spiritual and philosophical questions through the metaphor of clothes. Options are John Henry Newman, Matthew Arnold, Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin. So the option C is correct, Thomas Carlyle. Question 37. The term fin de siècle, which means end of the century, is often used to describe the literature of the late Victorian period, which is characterized by triumphant moral certainty and imperial pride, realism, social reform, and evangelicalism, decadence, aestheticism, and a sense of exhaustion, political revolution, and the rise of romanticism. Out of all the options, option C is correct one, decadence, aestheticism, and a sense of exhaustion. Question number 38. The angel in the house, a domestic ideal for Victorian womanhood, is a phrase taken from a poem by which author? Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Christiana Rossetti, Coventry Patmore, George Eliot. So the right is option C, Coventry Patmore. Question number 39. The aesthetic movement is said to have climaxed with the 1891 publication of which novel by Oscar Wilde? The importance of being earnest, an ideal husband, Shalom, the picture of the Dorian Gray. So the right option D, the picture of the Dorian Gray. Question number 40. Which Victorian writer and designer was a key figure in the arts and crafts movement, reacting against industrialization and advocating for the revival of medieval craftsmanship? Walter Pater, William Morris, Swinburne, Rossetti. The right option, William Morris. Question number 41. The term the two nations was used by Benjamin Disraeli in his novel Civil to refer to the division between which two groups in Victorian society? England and Ireland, the church and the state, the rich and the poor, the north and the south. So, option C is right, the rich and the poor. 42. Who is the author of the controversial poem Goblin Market, which has been interpreted variously as a children's poem, a commentary on Victorian sexuality, or a Christian allegory? Options are Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Christiana Rossetti, Swinburne, and Daisy Rossetti. The right option, Christiana Rossetti. Question number 43. The concept of stream of consciousness is a literary technique finds its early expression in the late Victorian and transitional works of which author? Robert Louis Stevenson, Henry James, Rudyard Kipling, Wilkie Collins. Option B is right, Henry James. 44. In which of Thomas Hardy's novels does the heroine burn an anonymous love letter, mistaking it for a declaration from a man she doesn't love, leading to a crucial misunderstanding? The Return of the Native, Jude the Obscure, Tales of the D'Urbervilles, Far from the Madding Crowd. The right option, Madding Crowd. Question number 45. Who is the author of nonfiction work Apologia Pro Vitasua, a spiritual autobiography that recounts his journey from Anglicanism to Roman Catholicism, embodying the period's religious doubt and search for certainty? Options: John Henry Newman, Thomas Carlyle, Matthew Arnold, Lord Tennyson. Option A, John Henry Newman is right. Question 46. Who coined the phrase sweetness and light in his work, later popularized in the context of cultural and moral refinement? Options: John Ruskin, Thomas Carlyle, Matthew Arnold, Walter Pater. So, Matthew Arnold is the right answer. 47. Which important intellectual work published in 1859 severely challenged traditional religious beliefs and contributed significantly to the Victorian crisis of faith? Options: Thomas Carlyle's Past and Present, Tennyson's In Memoriam, Darwin's On the Origin of Species, Stuart Mill's On Liberty. So option C, Darwin's On the Origin of Species is the right answer. Question number 48. The phrase red in tooth and claw, often used to describe the brutality of nature, and appears in which long poem by Tennyson? The Idylls of the King, Ulysses, Maud, In Memoriam. So the right option is In Memoriam. Question 49. The novel Jane Eyre by Bronte, Charlotte Bronte, is classified as a classic example of which two narrative genres combined? Options are as follows: Gothic novel and domestic novel, sensation novel and comedy of manners, Gothic novel and Bildungsroman, picaresque novel and historical novel. So the right option, Gothic novel and Bildungsroman. Question 50. Who is the central character in George Eliot's novel Middlemarch, whose ambition to achieve something heroic is continually thwarted by the limitations of provincial life and her marriage? Options: Option A, Gwendolen Harleth, Romola de Verdi, Dorothea Brooke, Maggie Tulliver. So option C, Dorothea Brooke is the right option. Question number 51. The sensational novel, a popular mid-Victorian genre characterized by mystery, crime, and domestic secrets, is best represented by which of the following authors and works? Options are Meredith's The Egoist, Eliot's Felix Holt, Collins' The Women in White, Dickens' Our Mutual Friend. Right answer, option C, Wilkie Collins' The Women in White. 52. Which poem by Matthew Arnold ends with the famous image of humanity clinging to a darkling plain swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night? Options: The Scholar Gypsy, Thyrsis, Dover Beach, Empedocles on Etna. The right answer, Dover Beach. Question 53. The Victorian interest in Eastern themes in the British Empire is strongly evident in the works of the Nobel Prize winner Rudyard Kipling. Which of these is his famous spy adventure novel set in India? The Jungle Book, Captain Courageous, The Man Who Would Be King, Kim. Right answer, Kim. 54. Thomas Hardy's fictional county of Wessex, the setting for most of his major novels, is modeled on which real life English region? Yorkshire, Cornwall, Dorset, Sussex. So it is Dorset. Question 55. John Ruskin's social and economic essays, particularly onto this last, were famously influential on the political philosophy of which 20th century world leader? Options are Lenin, Churchill, Gandhi, Roosevelt. So the right option is option C, Mahatma Gandhi. 56. The final words of Tennyson's The Lotus Eaters, which express the companion's weariness and wish to stay in the land of the lotus, are option A, come my friends, it is not too late to seek a newer world. Option B, knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. Option C, break, break, break on thy cold grey stones, O sea. Option D, let us alone, time driveth onward fast, and in a happy land we rest. The right option, option D, let us alone, time driveth onward fast, and in a happy land we rest. Question number 57. The term higher criticism, which gained prominence in the Victorian age, primarily refers to the criticism of contemporary novels and poetry in major journals, a historical critical method for studying biblical texts. Matthew Arnold's theory of culture and critical standards, the aesthetic movement's rejection of moralistic literature. The right option is B, a historical critical method for studying biblical texts. 58. The literary technique known as inscape and instress, terms used to describe the unique unifying design in nature and the power that grasps it, was developed by which poet? D.G. Rossetti, Swinburne, Browning, Gerard Manley Hopkins. So the right option is D. Gerard Manley Hopkins. 59. Which playwright, often associated with the late Victorian problem play, wrote Mrs. Warren's Profession, a controversial work about social hypocrisy and prostitution? Options: Oscar Wilde, G.B. Shaw, Wing Pinero, and Henry Arthur Jones. So the right option is B. George Bernard Shaw. 60. The novel The Tenant of the Wild Fell Hall, which caused scandal for its realistic portrayal of a woman escaping an abusive alcoholic husband, was written by which Bronte sister? Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Annie Bronte, Maria Bronte. So it is Annie Bronte who wrote the novel The Tenant of the Wildfell Hall. 61. The famous quote, all art is quite useless, which encapsulates the philosophy of aestheticism, is the concluding line of the preface to which Oscar Wilde novel, The Importance of Being Earnest, An Ideal Husband, Shallow, the picture of the Dorian Gray. So the right option is, as you seen, option D, the picture of the Dorian Gray. 62. Who wrote The Charge of the Light Brigade? Rudyard Kipling, Tennyson, Browning, Hardy. So it is Tennyson who wrote The Charge of the Light Brigade. Question number 63. Who is often called the representative poet of the Victorian age? John Keats, Tennyson, Browning, Arnold. So it is obviously option B, Alfred Lord Tennyson is called as representative poet of the Victorian period. 64. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood was founded in 1830, 1848, 1857, 1865. So the right option is B, 1848. 65. Which work by Thomas Carlyle reflects his interest in German philosophy and hero worship? Satyr Researchers, Past and Present, Heroes and hero worship, latter day pamphlets. So the right option is heroes and hero worship. So with this we come to the end of the video. If you find the video is helpful for you, then do like, share and subscribe. Press the bell icon for more updates. Thank you for watching.